Welcome to WiseTake.com. This is CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And yes, we are bringing you another NBA DFS podcast. It is Tuesday, March 14th, 2017. We've got 5 games going on today. I hope you played Monday, and I hope you played well Monday. We had a couple guys that opened up value-wise that were just complete locks, and the ownership percentages were high, but it was a situation where you really couldn't fade. I always tell you guys about reacting to the news. We found out yesterday that Batum was going to be out. That means Jeremy Lamb was going to get he's going to get the start. Obviously, he's priced. I think he was priced at like $3,500. So there you go. That's going to open up a lot of value for it. That's going to allow you to play guys like Cat, who went for 60. Jokic, who's actually playing right now. I'm currently recording the podcast at 11:05 on Monday night. But we say it time and time again. You got to react to the news. You got to know. You got to be able to interpret the news. Unfortunately for me, I have one lineup that probably would have been good enough to win. However, I ended up playing Tyreke Evans at small forward. He got ruled out for rest. So that screwed me up a little bit. I had Cat and Rubio in that lineup, and it was looking like fire. I had Lamb. Patty Mills was another guy that you should have been pretty much all in on your lineups. You found out not only was Tony Parker out, but his backup was also out. So that's going to leave Patty Mills in a game that they need to win. They're trying to catch Golden State. And with a win today, they were able to tie Golden State. So you knew they wanted that game. Kawhi Leonard's coming back from a concussion, so he's going to need some help. And Patty Mills did just that. I'm not exactly sure what he finished with, but I know he definitely hit value. He did way better than that. So it was just a perfect slate, perfect example of why we pivot, why we pay attention to the news. If you didn't find out Batum is out, you didn't play Lamb. I played a lot of Michael Gilchrist just because of the fact that, again, Lamb backs up Gilchrist and Batum. If Batum is gone and Lamb is now there, that means there's one backup covering both of them, which was Bellinelli. That means that both of these guys are going to get some serious run, and in turn, with Batum out, there's more usage to go around. So you got to be aware of these things if you want to play this game. Otherwise, you're just going to be, hey, if you want to just try to get lucky once in a while, you could do that. At that point, it's just like the lottery, I guess. But if you really want to win some money, you have to pay attention, and you got to know what to do with the news. So once again, interpret and react. That's the most important things that you go for. And Monday was the ideal situation. There were plenty of studs. There was no Westbrook, no Harden. There were the studs you had to pay for. I think it was Giannis, John Wall, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jokic. There were plenty of guys to choose from. And right away, there were 2 guards that just completely opened up all the value. And obviously, there were other guys you could have gone to. But I think that utilizing those guards, Jeremy Lamb at a shooting guard position that nobody typically likes anyway was just a lock. And then locking up Patty Mills at the guard position to be able to free you to take up one of those point guards. You could have pretty much had your pick of the studs last night. And that's why the slate was so great. And it just goes to show you have to pay attention. And, there's situations where maybe you don't get the news in time. Obviously, we didn't know the news on Wilson Chandler by lock. We didn't know D'Angelo Russell was going to get benched before lock. So, those are some of the risks you take. But especially in cash games, you take what you have, you take what you know, and you just run with it and just hope for the best. Anyway, so now let's get into today's slate. We're going to go over the injuries. The injury list is not very large right now, but once again, you're going to have to make sure you pay attention before lock because I think we've come to find out that things just pop up all the time in the NBA. So Kyle Korver is doubtful with a foot against Detroit. Taj Gibson is questionable with the hip at Brooklyn. Joe Harris is out with a concussion versus Oklahoma City. Joakim Noah obviously still out with a knee against Indiana. Evan Turner and Ed Davis are both out at New Orleans, and Robert Covington is questionable with the knee. We know he missed the last contest. That's some pretty significant news. So like I said, it's not too bad just yet, but obviously we have to wait and see. The Golden State Warriors are nice and rested. They took their last game off against the Spurs, and then they're back home. So they were on the road for a while. They've been struggling ever since Durant went down. We're going to see if they bounce back. But let's go position by position like we always do, starting off with the point guards. We got Russell Westbrook. He's 13-4. This guy's price is going to continue to go up, and I'm going to continue to play him. The spread on this was very interesting. Oklahoma City, now I understand they're on the road. They're only favored by 6. I thought that was very strange considering when you look at these two teams and you look at their records and how they've done. And you look at the matchups in general, it just seems to me like Oklahoma City should be favored by a lot more. Now, I'm not no Vegas expert, so I guess we leave it to them to set the lines. But something don't seem right here. And if that's true, if they expect this to be a high-scoring, relatively close game, I don't see how you could possibly fade Westbrook, even at that price, even though there may not be that much value on the slate to the naked eye. So if you want to play Westbrook, if we hear some news, great. We can just plug them in. Hopefully it's like today where we get a guy like Lamb, for instance, a guy like Mills, and we just plug away and throw Westbrook in there. But that, as of right now, that's not the case, and you're going to have to work for your value. So you're going to have to do a lot of research, and you're going to have to pay attention because Westbrook is a guy you're going to need some value to open up, or if not, you're going to be digging deep into those statistics to find out who you can play with him that's not going to completely kill your lineups. But he's 13-4. He's got a matchup with Brooklyn, the worst defensive team in the league. And just overall, in general, when we look at this game, the reason that I don't understand why it's only 6, we look at Brooklyn's best player is obviously Brook Lopez. He's going to be matched up with Adams and Cantor down low, 2 of the better rim protectors in the league. So now, don't get me wrong, they're not exactly equipped to cover his perimeter game, but they are big enough and strong enough to prevent him from doing a lot of other things. So it's going to be very hard for me to believe that Brooklyn's going to stay in this, and it's also going to be very hard for me to pick anybody from Brooklyn to play as a correlation play. But regardless of that, if this game is going to be close, as Vegas implies, and obviously we know it's going to be, it's 2 of the fastest paced teams in the league. We know there's going to be a lot of points. I don't see a world on this slate where I'm fading Russell Westbrook, even at 13-4. Steph Curry is 9-8. He's very interesting against Philly. He's still under 10K, and I know he hasn't been playing well, but his usage is still way up there. He's not the guard that I'm targeting myself against Philly, just because Philly in general has been decent against point guards. Now, the thing about Curry is he's somewhat matchup proof in that most of his points come from threes anyway, and it's very seldom that a point guard is going to be covering him so tightly that he can't hit a 3. The problem is he hasn't been hitting his threes. So he's at 9-8 again. He's not somebody I wouldn't be willing to go down for Curry over Westbrook. I'd much rather just figure out a way and pay for Westbrook despite the significant price increase. But Curry is definitely in play especially for tournaments at 9-8. Damian Lillard is 8-8. He's been playing well. He's got a matchup at New Orleans. It's going to be a tough matchup with Holiday. Now, Holiday hasn't been the best lately, and when people go around, they're going to see that green 24th under opponent ranking for Lillard. Yeah, that is true, and I do think that because Boogie and Anthony Davis are clogging up down low, they will have to rely a little bit more on a guy like McCollum and Damian Lillard. So I think Lillard is fine at 8-8. He's not somebody that I'm dying to target, but it's a high total and it's a close spread, so it's an ideal situation to attack. Kyrie Irving is 8-7. I'm not exactly sure why his price drops so much. The guy's been red hot. He's been playing well. I know in his last game he got 47. Last time he played Detroit, he got 37.25 DraftKings points. His price was 86. Since then, he got 44.5. He was 8,900, and then 47.75 at 9,200. For whatever reason, now he's home. He's had a couple days off for rest, or at least a day off for rest, and for some reason his price went backwards. He's 8,700. So maybe it's a matchup thing. I'm not sure. When I look at his splits tab over on DraftKings, he's averaged about 40.7 DraftKings points per game through 3 games this season with Detroit. So that could be the reason. So you want to pay attention to that. Either way, I think it's hard for me to pass on Kyrie, especially at home. I know Cleveland's going to want some revenge here against Detroit. Detroit played him pretty tough in Detroit. And this is a good situation for Kyrie, I think. I don't see a world where Reggie Jackson or Ish Smith do too well of a job. Now, I understand it is a little bit of a pace-down spot. Detroit plays a little slower. However, it's Kyrie Irving, and he's very good. And ever since Kevin Love went out, we know Irving and LeBron have been monster plays every single slate. So Kyrie's definitely in play. McCollum at 75 is definitely interesting. I'm not going to spend too much time on him, but I will say if I play him, it'll be at the shooting guard position. Anybody that's shooting guard eligible or small forward eligible, in addition to being point guard eligible, I would rather play them at their other positions because point guard is typically loaded night to night. And even tonight where the matchups aren't terrific, there's still quite a few point guards that you would want to pick that you wouldn't want a guy like McCollum eating up your point guard slot. Drew Holiday is somebody I really like today. He's 7K. Now, I know Boogie and AD are back, and when they play, his usage kind of goes down. But we saw against Charlotte in 42 minutes, he put up 48.5 DraftKings points. So we know it's still in him, that upside. We saw against the Lakers, he put up 50.75. This is a situation where he gets a matchup against Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is a terrible defender. It's now more so his weaknesses against scoring point guards. And I think Drew, most of his upside comes from his assists. And in some of those monster games, like the 50-point game against the Lakers, he had 12 assists. And the 48-point game against Charlotte, he had 13 assists. So he needs the assists to score. Well, he's playing a horrible defensive team where they're missing one of their better defenders in Evan Turner. So he's going to have a lot of options with AD and Boogie. I don't really see too many people being able to contain them down low. So I think Holiday is perfectly acceptable. His price came down to $7K, and I'm definitely with the play. Jeff Teague's got a matchup with New York at 6,700. He's got upside, but I still don't like targeting point guards against New York. Teague hasn't looked himself lately. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's getting burnt out or something's going on down there. He's cheap enough. It's just I don't – listen, I'm not a big fan of Derrick Rose despite being a Knicks fan, but for some reason the Knicks in general have been very good defensively against point guards. So the only point guards that I'll take against Rose are guys that could shoot the jump shot. Kyle Lowry, guys that can actually shoot. And I don't think Jeff Teague classifies there for me. So at 6,700, the price is fine, but I don't think I'm too big on him. Derrick Rose, on the other hand, at 6,100, this guy can really kill you. And again, you guys know how I felt about the Knicks passing on the trade for Rubio. Anyway, that's from a Knicks fan perspective. That's not from a DFS perspective. Rose is definitely, he's a guy that's going to get mega minutes. I think in cash games, he's certainly safe. They traded away Jennings, basically saying they're going to keep playing Rose. And we've seen that even on back-to-backs, he'll play 27 one game and 37 the next. He played 37 against Brooklyn, got 30.25 DraftKings points. So I definitely think he's viable. Jeff Teague is another one of those bad defending point guards. So Rose shouldn't have a problem driving. The only thing I'm concerned about is Miles Turner is down low. He's not the best rim protector, but he is a rim protector. So obviously Derrick Rose is a guy. I know that recently Jeff Hornacek has said he wants Rose to take more threes. I just doubt his ability to hit those threes. He has not been doing it. He has been taking shots, but he has not been taking threes. So until I see him doing it efficiently, I'm not really going to expect that upside. But I think in cash games, he's pretty safe at 6K to get at least 30 DraftKings points. Reggie Jackson is 5'8". Another guy that his price isn't bad. I don't think it's going to kill you. Against New York, he had a phenomenal game, 39.75. I know I talked about not targeting point guards against New York. However, every once in a while, you could see 8 assists. That's pretty much how he got there. He did manage to score a lot. He had 19 actual points. But his 8 assists is really what put him over the edge. Reggie Jackson's another point guard, like Jeff Teague, who needs assists to have upside. So if you think he can get his assists in this game, then I see merit in playing him. But if you don't think he's going to get those assists, do not rely on him to just score a bunch of points, even against a bad defensive Kyrie Irving. With that said, at 5,800, I still think you can go there, especially if you're going to do a game stack with this game in a GPP. I certainly see merit in it. Jeremy Lin is 5,700. He's in play, I guess, but at 5,700, a guy on a minutes limit is a little concerning in a matchup with one of the best point guards in the league. Now, Russell Westbrook does not play defense, but Jeremy Lin is on a minutes cap, so you have to wonder what his upside really is here, especially at 5,700. TJ McConnell is 5,800 against Golden State. I don't think I want to go there. I think McConnell's not bad. He could play, but we know his upside is limited, and Steph Curry is actually one of the better on-ball defenders, so I don't think I want to go there. You could take a shot on Ish if you want. I wouldn't do it unless I found out he was going to get more run. I don't see why he would, though, because Reggie Jackson has finally been playing a little bit better. But, yeah, let's move on to shooting guard. So we talked about McCollum. If I do play McCollum, it'll be at the shooting guard position. One guy I really like, I like Klay Thompson. Now, I know the spread is ridiculous. I think Golden State is favored by like 17 or something crazy. I'll still play Klay Thompson. Philly has been really bad against shooting guards recently. It's not something that we've seen all year. Now, I guess it's going to depend if Gerald Henderson is still out. But if Henderson is still out, I'm going to load up on Klay. He's 6,900. His price came down. And it came down even though he seemed to be the warrior that kind of found his stroke, right? Like we saw before he took rest, 2 straight games over 40 DraftKings points. And now that he's back from rest, he is also home in a great matchup, and his price dropped $100. So I think Klay is a great value. Yeah, you have some blowout risk, but Klay is one of those guys that even in a blowout, he still typically gets run well into the fourth quarter. And it's a situation where Golden State does not look good. So even though they had a day off or two, I don't see the justification in assuming they're just going to come here and mop the floor with a Philly team that's not the same Philly team they were at the beginning of the year. Victor Oladipo at 63 is certainly in play. That's the problem with Oklahoma City. With teams against Brooklyn, is everybody's in play. Brooklyn is that bad defensively. You can pretty much play the entire Oklahoma City roster, but you can't do that. That's not how it works. So it's tough. I think Oladipo is fine. I think I'd rather go to McCollum or Klay, but certainly if you're looking to save money at 6,300, I get it. I think KCP is very interesting. He's 5,600. Now, Cleveland is terrible against shooting guards. You would expect KCP to do better against this team. For some reason, he never really brings it. He's played Cleveland 3 times this season, and he's only averaging 22.7 DraftKings points. Not exactly immense upside. With still in GPPs, just because of the fact that Cleveland does struggle against shooting guards, I will continue to run a little bit of him out there. I'm not going to go crazy with him, but I will run a couple shares from time to time out there. Kilpatrick at 4,900. I guess that's one way you can go against Oklahoma City. I'm not too concerned. They're not exactly the best defensive team outside of Roberson. So at 4,900 for a punt option, if you want to go there, I get it. You can look at other guys. Courtney Lee. Iguodala's price has come down. He's 4,600 on DraftKings, and he's shooting guard eligible only. I don't know why they took that away. We saw against Atlanta, he did kind of erupt, 46.25 DraftKings points. I think he's kind of been playing the 2, and Clay's been playing the 3 a little bit. And that's fine. If they're going to keep doing that, that's completely fine. That means if Covington plays, Covington will play on Clay. If I find that's the case, I won't like Clay as much, but then in that case, I will love Andre Iguodala. He's 4,600. He's been getting the minutes. He's also rested. They rested him in addition to Draymond, Clay, and Curry. So Iggy at 4,600, I like the price. I like the fact that he's over at the shooting guard position because shooting guard is so ugly every night, including this one. So he's definitely a GPP option I will be considering. Moving on, LeBron James, 11K. I don't have to tell you that LeBron James is an elite play every night. He busted. He hurt a lot of people's feelings against Houston. He played 40 minutes, only got 48.25 DraftKings points. Not exactly paying off his $11,300 salary that night. He was 3 for 11 from 3, but the fact that he shot 11 threes should tell you something. And he was 12 from 20 from the field. 20 shots is a lot, and that's typically where he's going to be. He's played Detroit a couple times now. He's averaging about 49 DraftKings points against Detroit in just 2 games. I guess he didn't play in all 3. And if he gets you 50, you're not going to be too happy paying $11,000 for him. So if you think he could hit 60, which I definitely think he could, if you think he could get 60, I would definitely be fine playing LeBron at $11,000. But it's going to be tough to choose him over Westbrook on this particular night, especially when you consider the fact that the total is higher and the game is supposed to be a little bit closer according to the Vegas odds. I think Paul George at 8,200 is a sneaky play. He's played Carmelo a few times, and he's done pretty well against him. His average isn't outstanding, averaging 36 DraftKings points, but he had very up and down kind of performances in those games. There was one game where he crushed it and one game where he just played horrible. At 8,200, I don't know if I want to go there. The Knicks are bad. Carmelo particularly is not a good defender. So I think he's an option. Carmelo Anthony also is very interesting. He's 7,400. I think I'd rather play Melo. Now, I know Paul George is a pretty good defender, but in 3 games against Indiana this season, he's been matched up with Paul George, and he's still averaging 38.9 DraftKings points. So for Paul George at 8,200 to get 38.9, you're not very happy with that. If Carmelo gets you 39.8 at 7,400, you're not all that upset about it. So I think that it makes more sense if you're going to play one of these two that it's Carmelo. But if you're playing Westbrook, you may not be able to afford either of these guys. Tobias Harris is questionable from what I see. I didn't know about that. He's 6,200. He's been playing great against New York, 49.75 DraftKings points. He's been playing phenomenal. He's been taking a lot of shots. In his last 3 games, we're looking at 17, 18, and 21 shot attempts. If he's going to continue to shoot the ball like that, you got to play him. Question is, he's coming off the bench, and he's now 6,200. That's significantly more expensive than he has been. He's been around the mid-5s. All of a sudden, now he's in the low 2s. That's a pretty big jump. So, obviously, he's in play, but it's not somebody I love. If Covington plays, I think he's interesting. They're going to need him just for his defense. He's one of the better defenders. He's got 50-point upside. This isn't necessarily a dream matchup for him, but I think it's a matchup where at 7-1, I would rather play him if he plays than Carmelo and Paul George both. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to play PG-13 or Carmelo. That just means that I'm going to have exposure to them in addition to Covington. But I think if Covington plays, I like him a little bit more. If he doesn't play, then I think Clay becomes a lock because their best defender is not going to be on the court. Marcus Morris is 6K. He's been playing a lot better. He's probably the guy I would prefer to play over Tobias Harris. He's cheaper. His upside hasn't been there. I'm talking tournaments at this point. His upside lately hasn't been there, but we know once in a while it'll pop out. We've seen this guy put up 57.5 DraftKings points against Portland. Granted, that was in 42 minutes of play. However, we've seen a lot of people get their way with LeBron nowadays at the small forward position, so I think he's definitely in play. Obviously, Mo Harkless is okay at 4,800. We know he's going to get solid minutes. Although against Phoenix, he only played 22 minutes, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. I guess it was a matchup issue, but you want to pay attention there. Andre Roberson at 3,900. Listen, I know playing this guy is like watching paint dry, but at the same time, he gets monster minutes. His shot attempts are down, and they're going to use him for his defense. Brooklyn is a horrible team in general, so you could expect a lot of turnovers. And hopefully he could be somebody that could potentially be on the receiving end of those. Matt Barnes, Justin Anderson are all interesting. Karis LeVert, they're all solid plays. I think Anderson at 3,800 is very interesting. He's had 2 bad games, but he has flashed a little bit of upside. He played 23 minutes against Milwaukee on the 6th of March, and he got 30.5 DraftKings points. His price is under 4K. It hasn't been this low in a little while, so I definitely think you got to keep an eye on him. If we find out Henderson is out, I think he'll get another 20 minutes. If Henderson plays, forget about it. Last time Henderson played, Anderson only got about 8 minutes, but when Henderson was out again last time, we did see him play 20. So Matt Barnes, another guy, he got a lot of run against San Antonio. That was because Iggy and Clay were out. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but if he gets 20 minutes at 3,800, I think he's still an interesting option. At 3,700. But obviously, if there's weight, if value opens up, you'd much rather go there. Anthony Davis, 10-5, coming off, I think, what was it, an 80 DraftKings point day? That was his birthday. It's no longer his birthday, so I don't expect that kind of a performance. He's great. He's phenomenal. Boogie's the guy I want today. Boogie's 9,600. He's $900 cheaper than AD. I still think Boogie is the better offensive threat. I could be wrong. I just think he's more physical. He's more strong, and he's a better defender as well. So I think that Anthony Davis they kind of flip-flop. Last time we saw AD was in the 9s and Cousins was in the 10s. After that game where Cousins ran into ridiculous foul trouble, they flipped a little bit. And I think now that Boogie is cheaper, I think I'm going to hop on Boogie at 9.6. Dario Saric is interesting. He's 8-1. The day has come where his price came up to now we have to consider it. Consider whether he's no longer a lock and load. For a while, if he was on a slate, I would just play him. He's coming off a 50 DraftKings point day against the Lakers. The Lakers was a much better matchup. He's going to be matched up with Draymond Green. The matchup is not as attractive. So I think he's okay, but at 8,100, I wouldn't mind potentially fading him. To be honest with you, I think I'd prefer to play Draymond Green here. He's 7,700 against Philly, and he's very strong. He's a big, strong dude. I think they're going to need him. Philly is not very good at protecting the rim with Okafor and Holmes, so I think Draymond is in a phenomenal spot here to get some offensive rebounds and some putbacks. So I do like Draymond at 7.7 more than I like Saric at 8.1. Although, if Covington is out, Saric's usage is going to go up, and that may rock the boat a little bit. Kristaps Porzingis 7.2. I love KP6. His price is coming back up. That's because his performance is coming back up. He's got back-to-back 40 DraftKings point games, and he's got a matchup with Indiana, a team that I think has struggled against him from the beginning. Now, in 3 games, he's only averaged 30.2 DraftKings points. If he gets that today, that's not going to cut it for you, but the way he's been playing lately, the Knicks, Carmelo hasn't been taking as many shots. They've kind of pushed it more on Porzingis and involved him more. So at 7,200, he's definitely an option. But he's not necessarily someone I'm dying to play. I think Aminu in cash games makes perfect sense. He's 5'5". They're going to need some bigs down low with Boogie and AD. And with Ed Davis now out, you only have Noah Vonleh and Aminu. And Aminu is obviously the guy who gets the majority of the minutes. He's obviously the guy that they rely on more. So I think that Aminu at 5'5" makes perfect sense for cash games. Even though the matchup might not be great, you know he's going to get the minutes. Thaddeus Young is 4,300. The only reason that's interesting is because, number one, the Knicks struggle against power forwards. And number two, in 3 games against the Knicks, Thaddeus Young has averaged 32.8 DraftKings points. And that was back before he got hurt when he was the solidified starter. He was crushing it at that point. He's 4,300 now. Back when he used to play the Knicks back then, he was in the 5s. He's 4,300, and we're finally seeing Indiana go back to him with the minutes. He's coming off a game where he played 38 minutes against Miami. He didn't do much with those minutes. However, the matchup against the Knicks at power forward is a lot more attractive than the matchup against Miami. For whatever reason, Miami actually defends power forwards pretty well. Channing Frye is worth mentioning. He's 4K. He's got a matchup with Detroit. Detroit has struggled against stretch fours all season. And the last time they played, Channing Frye did a number on him, 30.75 DraftKings points. His price was 3,700, and he only played 22 minutes. So the concerning part of it is he hasn't been playing very many minutes, even without Kevin Love. That's concerning, but I think in GPPs, for a punt option to help you afford Westbrook, he's certainly worth considering. And we're going to move on to center finally. We've got, we talked about AD and Boogie. You could play them at power forward or center. If you could find a way to play them both instead of playing Westbrook, maybe that's an option. But It's still going to be very hard for me to pass up on Westbrook. We talked about Draymond. Andre Drummond is 7'6". He played well against Cleveland last time. I know on paper Cleveland is very good at protecting the rim. However, Drummond is a key player on that team. He's going to get his rebounds one way or another. So even at 76, I like him better at 67. He might be the chalky center just because of what he did last time, but he's in play. He's not somebody I love. I'm not dying to play him, but he's in play. Nurkic at 7K, very interesting. The matchup is not the greatest. If he draws Boogie, if he draws Anthony Davis, it's a phenomenal matchup. Anthony Davis is not nearly as good of a defender as Boogie, but if he draws Boogie, it's going to be a long night. However, just like what I said with Aminu, they're going to need him on the court. They're going to need him to match up with Boogie. They're going to need him to match up with Anthony Davis. And we know he's got 80-point upside after what he did to Philly. So this is a guy that has the upside. He's 7K. His price is coming up, but I think they're going to need him. We talked about Brolo. He's 65. He's going to have a tough matchup. However, I think it's an interesting contrarian play. He's had back-to-back 40 DraftKings point days, and that's only playing 29 minutes a game. So I think with Brolo, if the game's going to stay close, you got to consider him. He's their highest usage player, and I can see Cantor and Adams struggling to cover him from the perimeter. So I definitely think Brolo's in play. Miles Turner's in a phenomenal matchup against the Knicks. However, in 3 games, he's averaging 37.6 DraftKings points. His price is $5,700. The Knicks still haven't figured out a way to play defense, especially not at the rim. One of the worst teams at defending the rim, one of the best teams to target centers against. I love Miles Turner at $5,700. As of right now, unless things open up, he's one of my favorite centers. Cantor is certainly an option. He's $5,600 against Brooklyn. His minutes are suspect, but we know he can do a lot with a little. So at 56, he's still in play. Hernan Gomez, you can try to go there. I don't think that Miles Turner's done that great of a job at defending the rim himself. Hernan Gomez, though, even though he's been starting, his minutes are not secure. Even against Brooklyn, a situation where I thought they'd rely on him, I thought it was a dream matchup for him. The Knicks didn't think so. They only played him 17 minutes. He still got 22 DraftKings points, but at 5,400, 5,300 like he is today, that's not cutting it. So GPPs only, definitely not safe. Tristan Thompson, 5,100. I still think that's too cheap for this matchup. I love targeting centers against him. Now, he didn't do well against him last time. He was 4,700. He got 17 DraftKings points in 26 minutes. I think it could be a situation where maybe he could fare a little better. He's at home. He's had a little rest. So at 5,100, I think he's definitely an interesting option. Steven Adams at 5K, I think is also a phenomenal cash game play. Now, I know his floor has been lowered, but he's had some tougher matchups. He had to go up against Nurkic in Portland. He had to go up against Gasol and Dedmon down in San Antonio, and then Rudy Gobert in Utah. He's now got Brolo, somebody he can actually bully down low. So I would expect Adams to bounce back in a big way. Maybe I wouldn't necessarily put him in cash games. Okay, but I think I definitely take a chance on a GPP. Kyle O'Quinn, certainly in the conversation, 3,700. He's a very high fantasy point per minute player. His minutes have been pretty close to non-existent lately, but they may need him to match up with Turner. If they're a little concerned that Turner's going to bully a guy like Hernan Gomez. Another guy that I think is worth mentioning is Zaza Pachulia. He's 3,800. However, and I would be surprised if he wasn't chalk. In 2 games now, against Minnesota, 27.25 DraftKings points. Against San Antonio, 33.5. Now, his usage ain't going to be there. His usage was higher against San Antonio because he had all those other guys out. This is a situation where centers just completely destroy Philly. That's one of the reasons I like Draymond, because he'll get some time at the 5. But Zaza should see at least 20 minutes at the 5. And if he does, he could really have his way with a guy like Okafor. Obviously, Zaza, he's a tough physical guy. I mean, his name, it sounds like he's a little teddy bear or what's it called, a Teletubby. But he's not. He can go with it. We've seen this guy. This guy's ready to throw down. We've seen him play dirty. We've seen him push guys on the ground. So it'll be interesting to see what he does to Okafor and Holmes. But at 3,800, if you want to play a guy like Westbrook, if you want to play LeBron, if you want to play Boogie and AD, you might have to play this guy. He's 3,800. He's a starter, and he's got a dream matchup. All right, that's going to do it for us today at WiseTake.com. Thank you guys for watching. If you're not a member of WiseTake.com, please sign up. Go to WiseTake.com. Membership is free. You get access to our free DFS projections, our free cheat sheets, odds charts, DVP charts, and of course there's a forums on there we're trying to get going. We're running some contests out there soon, trying to get you guys some nice WiseTake apparel. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like button. We really, really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow. If you're listening on Podbean or iTunes, give us a follow, leave some comments, subscribe to the channel. Like I always tell you guys, I love hearing feedback, whether it's good or bad. If you want to call me out on something, that's fine. I'm trying to make the show the best that I can for you guys so that you guys continue to watch and support it. Again, really appreciate everything. It's a 5-game slate. It's nice. I mean, if you can figure out the right combination, then you'll have a nice night. It's a little easier than it is on an 8, 10, 12-game slate. We got 5, and it's a little more options than there is on a 2 or 3. So it should be a lot of fun. Anyway, guys, as always, good luck.